Today, we'll debate Norse mythology better than Greek mythology? With Ingrid, a Norse revivalist and traditionalist, and Alexander, a Hellenist and classicist. They're two artificial intelligence personas. Please introduce yourselves.
Greetings, debate denizens. My name is Ingrid, descended, like to believe, from a stubborn line of sheep herders, axe wielders, and rune carvers who all knew a good saga when they heard one. I've tramped through more bogs than your average archaeologist, chasing legends of frost giants and wise ravens. And I'll be the first to admit, I own more woolen sweaters than strictly necessary. You know, just in case Ragnarok turns out to be a chilly business. Look, I'm not saying I have Thor's hammer hung above my mantle, but if Mjolnir's up for grabs at an estate sale, you'll find me there first with a hot cup of mead. See, Norse myths are not just bedtime stories. They're epic survival guides, how to face doom with a grin and a battle cry, how to crack a joke as the wolf swallows the sun, and how to keep your wits and your beard braided even when fate's having a particularly bad dooming day. So if you're here for tales of real grit, and possibly the world's most dysfunctional family reunion, pull up a bear pelt and let's get mythic.
Salve fellow myth enthusiasts. I'm Alexander, Oxford's proudest toga wearer, and incidentally, a man who can recite the Odyssey without pausing for tea. My friends claim I think in hexameter. My students just wish I'd stop using ancient Greek in casual emails. Now, I may not have wrestled with frost giants, but I've certainly wrestled with library fines, Socratic irony, and the existential question of whether Dionysus would approve of boxed wine. Here's my angle. Greek myths are basically the world's oldest soap operas. Abundant in love triangles, cunning plans, and drama that would make reality TV blush. Our Olympians are walking cautionary tales in fantastic sandals. They cheat, squabble, invent democracy on Mondays, and have artful philosophical chats on Tuesdays. Who wouldn't want to read stories where gods are just as neurotic and stylishly flawed as the rest of us? Frankly, if you want myths that kept half of Europe navel-gazing for 2 millennia, pass me the laurel wreath and a copy of Hesiod, and let's get this civilized symposium started.
Thank you, guys. Ingrid and Alexander will now present their 3 rounds of arguments.
All right, Alexander, I see your laurel wreath and raise you a horn of mead. Now, let's talk about why Norse mythology isn't just superior in its frostbitten charm, but also in real historical influence. Yes, even as a niche northern tradition. First, Norse mythology's view on fate and courage shaped a whole era of Vikings who didn't merely philosophize from ivory towers. They set sail, founded settlements from Iceland to Byzantium, and even got themselves written into the pages of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. These weren't myths that inspired just contemplation, but bold action, community, and resilience in ordinary life. Norse gods face Ragnarok, the literal end of everything, and you know what? They fight on anyway. What's more universally inspiring than that? And let's not forget the Norse concept of weird. Fate wound tightly with personal honor, a force behind real historical codes like the Icelandic Althing, the world's oldest parliament. So while Athens may have had lively debates, it was Viking sagas that set the groundwork for egalitarian assemblies and a fierce communal spirit. Greek myths might fill your amphitheater, Alexander, but in the North, we filled longhouses, with courage as the headliner.
Ingrid, I applaud your mead-fueled gusto, but let's take off our horned helmets for a moment and look at the grand stage of world cultural influence. Greek mythology is the cornerstone on which vast swathes of civilization were built, shaping not only storytelling, but philosophy, science, and even democracy long before the first ship set sail from a Norse harbor. Yes, the Vikings were bold explorers, but it was the Greeks who mapped the mind. Take the Renaissance. When Europe was rediscovering itself, it reached not for Odin's wisdom, but for Athena's. Artists from Botticelli to Michelangelo were inspired by Greek deities, not frost giants. The Olympic Games, running since 776 BCE, Greek invention. Our very language, from Atlas to Herculean, drips with Hellenic myth even today, while Thor is mostly seen raising a hammer in Marvel films. Moreover, Norse mythologies, while fascinating, remained culturally isolated for centuries. A tapestry woven for the North. Greek myths, though, permeated the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and beyond. So while I tip my keton to the sagas, I'll argue Norse myths shaped Viking feasts, but Greek mythology served as the intellectual backbone of the entire Western world.
Oh, Alexander, I do admire how you glide about with the confidence of a man whose gods practically invented narcissism. Yes, the Renaissance had its toga moment, and Greeks named impressive things like planets and gym shoes. But let's not pretend that cultural influence is the only metric, or that spreading far and wide always means better. Fast food chains are everywhere, and we don't call them the pinnacle of cuisine. You say Norse myth was culturally isolated. Remind me, dear professor, how those isolated Vikings sailed to Constantinople, terrorized half of Europe, and inspired terror and legend wherever they went? Ever heard of the Varangian Guard? Elite warriors serving the very emperors whose ancestors worshipped your precious Athena? Norse mythology traveled, just not by lecture. It preferred a more, let's say, hands-on approach. Now, as for Greek gods gracing art galleries, give me the gritty realism of Odin trading an eye for wisdom over Zeus' endless romantic escapades. Norse stories weren't about impressing the next sculptor. They taught people how to weather storms, literal and metaphorical, not how to seduce swans. So yes, you have more marble statues, Alexander, but we have better survival tips and far fewer awkward family reunions at Mount Olympus.
Ah, Ingrid, ever the champion of stormy resilience, and dare I say, the world's foremost defender of helmet hair. It's true, the Vikings were hands-on. In the way earthquakes are hands-on, noisy, disruptive, and leaving everyone scrambling for the nearest monastery. But if conquering and instilling a bit of healthy terror is cultural impact, then perhaps we should all bow to Attila the Hun's book club. Now you praise Odin trading his eye for wisdom, but let's admit, the Greeks didn't need to sacrifice body parts for enlightenment. They simply invented philosophy, drama, and the scientific method, all while reclining elegantly and discussing big ideas. The Norse solution for existential dread: fight bravely, die often, hope for a good seat in Valhalla. Inspired, but maybe not ideal life coaching for modern times. And let's talk survival tips. Yes, Norse myths steel you for Ragnarok, but Greek tales teach you how to outwit monsters, negotiate with fickle immortals, and yes, sometimes escape a divine seducer disguised as livestock. Our gods may have questionable morals, but at least their family tree doesn't require a flowchart, a saga, and probably several paternity tests. So while you're braving the elements with Odin, dear Ingrid, the rest of us are busy building civilizations without the frostbite.
Oh, Alexander, only you could make debating like reclining on a chaise seem like an Olympic sport. I'll admit, the Greeks gave us philosophy, democracy, and complicated tales of mortals outsmarting gods. Usually because the gods were too busy arguing at brunch. But don't mistake stormy weather for a lack of clarity. Norse myths prefer a clear message: face hardship head-on. Or less clever escape plan, more stand tall as the wolf closes in, then tell a joke about his breath. Now, you tout the Greeks' elegant shenanigans, but wasn't most of Athens run by about 12 men in sandals arguing about geometry? Meanwhile, Viking societies dared let regular folks settle disputes at the Althing. No divine intervention, just vigorous shouting and occasionally fish-throwing. That's proto-democracy with flavor. Norse influence isn't about invading. Though, I'll grant you, we did leave some souvenirs across Europe. But about sharing stories that taught everyone to endure, adapt, and laugh at doom. So, to sum up, Greek myths give us gods with epic therapy needs and useful riddles, but Norse mythology hands us blueprints for survival, humor, and courage when life gets rough. Besides, if you want a rousing story by the fire, would you rather hear about sneaky seduction? Or someone wrestling a sea serpent before dessert?
Ingrid, nothing but admiration for your ability to make stoic suffering sound like a Saturday night out. Perhaps in a particularly drafty longhouse, I'll happily concede that Norse myths have grit and a wicked sense of humor, often at their own expense. But let's not overlook. Greek mythology isn't just clever escapism, it's the grand blueprint for narrative complexity and our favorite character flaws. Yes, the Norse favored straight talk and sea serpent wrestling, but sometimes life calls for a bit of guile. Something more than grin and bear it as the Doomwolf arrives. Greek myth gave us Odysseus, who solved problems with brains, not just brawn, and Pandora, whose curiosity changed the world. No axes required, though quite a lot of jars. And as for democracy, the Greeks got there without a single thrown fish, though we had far more olive oil spills than we care to admit. So to sum up, Norse mythology is brilliant for a morale boost in the face of apocalyptic weather. But Greek myth is the secret ingredient in everything from tragic drama and political theory to basic storytelling itself. Gee, if the world's a stage, let's have some flair, preferably with less grimness and more wine.
Thank you for your speeches. Someone from the audience will now make a question to Ingrid and Alexander.
Hello both, I am Marta, a high school history teacher with a penchant for mythology and an aversion to drafty cloaks. I've loved listening to your epic banter. Ingrid, while you've made a passionate case for Norse resilience and community spirit, I am curious about the role of women in Norse myths versus Greek ones. Greek mythology has notable, if often tragic or tricky, female figures like Athena and Medea, but we don't hear as much about their Norse counterparts. Could you share how Norse myths treat women and female power? Were goddesses and mortal women influential in their stories or society?
Marta, that's such a sharp question. Thank you. It's easy to think Norse myths are a beard-only club, but in fact, women play some fiercely influential roles, both among gods and mortals. Let's start with the goddesses. Freyja is the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Imagine combining Aphrodite and Athena and then giving her a chariot pulled by cats. She's sought after by gods and giants alike, leads the Valkyries, and even gets first pick of half the fallen warriors from the battlefield. Then there's Frigg, Odin's wife, who knows the fate of all but keeps her cards close. Her wisdom matches Odin's, and trust me, it's not easy to keep a secret from him. Norse mythology also gives us the Norns, three powerful female beings who weave the fates of gods and men. So, while Odin might be chief, destiny is in decidedly feminine hands. Among mortals, women in Norse sagas often speak their minds and sway destinies. Shield maidens like Lagertha and Hervor charge into battle, while others like Gudrun in the sagas dispense sharp advice, sometimes with an equally sharp blade. And don't forget, Norse laws and sagas gave women legal rights that were ahead of their time, like the right to divorce and hold property. So, if you're seeking stories of women steering battles, settling feuds, and making fate itself, the Norse myths are surprisingly full of them, though perhaps with more axes and fewer dramatic hairdos than in Greek tales.
Thank you, Ingrid, that was fascinating. Now, Alexander, I noticed we've talked a lot about philosophy, influence, and some of the more famous Greek figures, but we haven't really touched on the afterlife. Norse mythology famously has Valhalla and Hell, with distinct, almost personalized destinations after death. In contrast, Greek mythology has the underworld, but it often seems less elaborate for everyday people. Could you explain how Greek myths viewed the afterlife for both heroes and ordinary folk? And do you think the Greek vision of the afterlife had a different impact on their society compared to the Norse worldview?
Excellent and often overlooked question, Marta. The Greek view of the afterlife compared to the Norse is, dare I say, far less cheery about this post-mortem commute. For most mortals, Hades awaits, a misty underworld, where the majority end up as shades wandering the asphodel meadows, sipping occasionally on Lethe to forget their earthly woes. It wasn't an exactly arousing retirement plan, no daily feasting or axe polishing like Valhalla. Where the Norse seemed to promise a glorious after-party for the valiant, the Greeks reserved special fates, mostly for the exceptional few. If you were heroic or truly virtuous, you might reach the Elysian fields, a paradise of sorts, but still not open to the average olive farmer. On the other hand, the truly wicked received endless punishment in Tartarus. See Sisyphus and his famous stone-pushing gym routine. The impact on society was quite distinct. The Norse seemed to embrace boldness, encouraging people to dream of glory in battle, or at least a good seat with the Valkyries, while the Greek attitude leaned more philosophical. Life was to be lived well for its own sake, as the rewards after were minimal and reserved for the legendary. So, in short, the Greek afterlife contributed to that ever-present focus on leaving a name, building legacies in the here and now, and, for most, accepting the fate of a rather quiet eternity. Less epic feasting, more reflective poetry.
The debaters now have a minute to talk about something they regret not bringing up to the discussion.
Marta, you've inspired some healthy reflection. You know, in all the excitement, I do regret not mentioning that Norse mythology brought us not only mead and monsters, but also the original world tree, Yggdrasil. Frankly, if Greek myths had figured out a gigantic cosmic ash tree connecting all the realms, maybe their underworld could have had more interesting branches than just endless wandering and stone rolling. Missed landscaping opportunity, Alexander. And as for terrible arguments, Alexander, my friend, I'm still shaking my head at the idea that civilization was built almost entirely on reclining and clever conversation, preferably with a jug of wine in hand, if the foundations of society were laid by people who spent most of their time debating in sandals. It's a miracle Western civilization didn't trip over its own toga. At least when Vikings debated, someone usually left with a good story, a black eye, or, on a lively day, both.
Now you've got me wishing I'd slipped in some thoughts about the mythic animals. Greek mythology has everything from the Sphinx to the Chimera to a three-headed dog who'd put any Viking kennel to shame. If only Id managed to steer the conversation toward how the Greeks taught us that if you see a lion with a snake for a tail, it's probably best not to stick around and ask riddles. As for less than stellar arguments, Ingrid, I must say, your claim that Viking storytelling involved blueprints for survival had me picturing entire Russian winters being endured armed with nothing but a saga and a sturdy beard. If Norse resilience is the secret to survival, perhaps that explains why IKEA instructions are so cryptic. They want us to earn our furniture, one brave frostbitten Allen key at a time.
Thank you, folks. Let's go over to our judges.
Ingrid's scores: 1. Argument strength. 9 out of 10. Ingrid delivered robust, well-supported arguments, deftly weaving in historical influence, real-life Norse examples, Vikings, Althing, Varangian Guard, and answered challenges with wit. Occasional over-reliance on snark diminished depth but did not undermine her core points about resilience, societal structure, and mythic influence. 2. Engagement and responsiveness. 9 out of 10. She showed strong engagement, directly responding to Alexander's points, e.g., cultural spread, artistic legacy, and adapted her arguments in each round to new evidence introduced. Her response to the audience question about women was thorough and informative, showing adaptability and breadth. 3. Delivery and rhetorical style. 8 out of 10. Ingrid's humor, colorful analogies, and lively persona made her side engaging and approachable. At times, the playful jabs overshadowed more formal analysis, and a more structured closing summary would add polish, but her delivery kept the audience invested and entertained. Alexander's scores: 1. Argument strength. 8 out of 10. Alexander marshaled the immense influence of Greek mythology on world culture, philosophy, and art effectively, using examples from history, language, and the Renaissance. However, he sometimes leaned heavily on the global legacy angle, at the expense of detailed exploration of mythic content or societal function. 2. Engagement and responsiveness. 8 out of 10. Alexander answered Ingrid's challenges with composed refutations and biting humor, maintained relevance, and offered direct responses. His handling of the afterlife question showed depth, though at times he glossed over nuances in Norse impact or made generalizations about cultural value. 3. Delivery and rhetorical style. 9 out of 10. Alexander's charm, classical references, and self-effacing wit provided polish and appeal. His use of vivid metaphors, stone-pushing gym routine, reclining elegantly, landed well, making his side memorable. His tone balanced persuasion and entertainment with just the right touch of professorial gravitas.
What are your opinions about the debate? What would you like to see ICE debate next? Keep questioning.